Back in late 2014, early 2015, I moved to the Quakertown area, and for me, it was a new start. One of the things with starting over is sometimes you want to make a first great impression. And while I was here, getting to know people and everything like that, I made it seem like I had my life in control, that everything was perfect and that I had no issues. But in reality, I did. One of the things being on my own for the first time was I really didn't know what or how to spend money in a sense. I had to learn that money was a tool and it was a gift and a blessing from God. By the spring of 2015, I was behind on my rent. I maxed out 2 credit cards. One was $5,000, another one was $500. I was late on my heat bill, my electric bill, my student loans. I just couldn't keep up. And it got to a point where I was purposely making a negative account in my bank. And so I was losing $500 every time I got paid. You know, when we're in our darkest moments, we still, for me personally anyways, I like to put up these walls of pride of saying, I can handle it, I can handle it, I can handle it. And it just came to a point where I couldn't. I remember when the wall, the house of cards that I created all crumbled down. The week after Thanksgiving, I see these flashing lights and I hear this truck pull up, and all of a sudden I hear this knock at my door. I go downstairs and this man approaches me. He's like, "Are you Mike Kubus? I'm here to take your keys." And at that point, I knew I hit rock bottom. As a kid, you know, you never want to disappoint your parents. And I remember a friend driving me to my parents, and my parents lived 2.5 hours away. And I remember calling them actually before we drove up, said, "Hey, there's something I need to talk to you about personally." And I just tell them everything. I tell them how I was late on my bills. I tell them how my car got repossessed. Talk about a look of disappointment. I remember her looking me straight in the eyes, her tears rolling down, and she said, "Mike, you're a Kubus, and Kubuses don't give up. You are going to get through this." I remember one day just fasting and praying and asking for God's forgiveness because I knew I was lying about my finances. I was putting on a show. I was being a poser. And I said, "God, I just need to get out of this hole. I need to trust you and just help me." In January of 2016, here at Morning Star, Pastor John actually was preaching a message on tithing, and they had what was called the 90-day challenge. I remember going home actually the night afterwards, and I'm praying, and I'm like, "Okay, God, I'm going to put my finances in your hands. Show me what you can do." He showed me why I should trust in him. He knows everything that's going to happen. He knows every situation. He wanted me to trust him. One of the other things I had to learn was to actually track my spending or creating a budget. Where am I spending my money and where can I cut back so I can actually make sure I'm tithing to God? One month I spent over $300 on eating out. Fair enough to say I knew where I needed to cut back at that point. And so as I'm continuing trusting God in my finances, you know, I'm starting to get back on my feet. This past spring and summer, I got a message from my mom, and she was like, "Hey, the loan company that you've gotten your student loans with in the past, there's some legal action happening, and you know, you can possibly have some of your student loans forgiven, and you should check it out." Just to put it in perspective, I'm at a point now here where I'm about to get married. And I had a budget created to see what our debts and everything would be like when Rachel and I got married. And we were looking to have about $90,000 to start in debt with. It's going to take about 10 years to pay off all the loans and us to finally start working on the ministry God had called us to do. The guy calls me back and he's like, "Hey, I've got some great news for you. We're taking away all of your student loans except for 3. $60,000, is that correct? You're forgiving roughly $60,000. And he's like, "Yeah, we're forgiving roughly $60,000 of your student loans. Talk about a miracle. It was something I didn't earn. It's something I don't even deserve. I truly believe those student loans were forgiven so we can start 5 years ahead of schedule. God has bigger plans for us regarding our ministry and us just being faithful to Him with our finances, and that He is now giving us this blessing to start 5 years ahead of schedule. I don't know where you are financially as you're watching this video, and I truly can't promise that you're going to get the same miracle or blessing that I received. But I do promise this. If you do trust God with your finances, if you do tithe 10% to Him and live off the 90%, I promise you He'll provide the blessings and the miracles that you need and your family need financially moving forward. I'm Mike Kubus, and my God is limitless.